Hey, what's going on, guys? Just gonna go straight to the point. I have here, this is a single carburetor off of a VT600, Honda VT600. It's a 2006 year model. Just gonna go through the basic overhaul and check procedures just to make sure everything is functioning as it's supposed to. And it just jumped. I guess it's still alive a little bit. Just really quick, I've already loosened up these screws on this side. Reason being, I normally have a T-handle screwdriver. I cannot find it, so that's kind of unfortunate, really. And the float bowl side, I've loosened up. I think 2 of the 4 of them. So what I have is this is a regular screwdriver. What you will want to use is a P2 Phillips. Sorry, not P2. You want to use a JIS. This is a P2 screwdriver. You want to use a JIS, Japanese Industry Standard screwdriver. I'm using a regular P2 screwdriver. It's never done me wrong. I've never stripped out a screw using it. In my T-handle screwdriver, I've actually removed screws that are, and the T-handle, if you don't know, this is like a straight handle. T-handle, it would be off like this, and you'd be able to grab it like that. Kind of like the your tire patch kits that you buy. They've got the T-handle. The T-handle tool that comes in the kit. So this is just a regular straight through. You would want to get as a T-handle screwdriver. It just gives you more leverage with grabbing, pushing, turning. You really don't have a lot of you have a lot more room for error basically if you use this. So it's not advised to use this, but I am using this. So get a Japanese Industry Standard style screwdriver. Also, if you do have stripped screws, I'm just going to show how really quick how to remove a stripped screw. These are some miniature vice grip Powerbuilt brand. It's a really cheap brand, but these were like a couple dollars. They really weren't that expensive. But this one, I'm just going to pretend that it's stripped, right? It's not stripped, but I'm just clamping the trying to clamp on the side. Okay, so I've got it clamped on the side. I'm just going to hold it and turn, and you hear it break free. And when I release it, I just have some small teeth marks on the side, and the Phillips bit, I didn't really use it. So that's that. The rest of these are loose, except for that one. That was not loose. Okay, so I have already drained out. I've loosened this drain screw that's on the opposite side of the carburetor. I've drained out the fuel, and I've got it here in my little makeshift workbench. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to loosen this diaphragm side, and I've also taken out. You don't have to, I wouldn't take this off all the way. This throttle position sensor, leave it on. Just kind of work with it being in the way. If you are planning on dipping this in a carburetor cleaner, like a carb dip, the big bucket of carb dip, remove everything plastic and everything rubber, so you have to fully disassemble this, and that I'm not going to do. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take this off first. The reason being is I'm going to be using carburetor cleaner. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit and go through all the tools that I'm going to be using. So like I said, I wish that I had my T-handle screwdriver, but it's unfortunate that I can't find it. I don't know where it's at. I'm bad about letting people borrow things and not knowing where they are. So I have my 8mm socket here, and like I said, my little miniature vice grips. I'm not using anything. I'm not going to use these on anything brass. So my little screwdriver. This is comes in handy. I'm probably not going to use it. And this is the most important tool that I have that I'm using for the carburetors. This is just a guitar string, high E guitar string, 10 gauge. Which is usually 0.010 is how it's rated. I've had to use 0.009 before on really small carburetors, but this, people have given me negative comments and said, you're gonna scratch the jet. Don't even worry about that. If you stick this through once, spin the jet around on it, you're gonna get any gunk that you have on that inside of that jet out, and then pull it back out. I usually spray carburetor cleaner in it first. It's probably just going to leave one little tiny scratch on the inside of the jet. It's really not that much of an issue at all. So like I said, I've already loosened all of these, and I'm just going to take this diaphragm side out first. So I have my carburetor cleaner. Carburetor cleaner does not agree well with these little diaphragms, so I'm not using them on this. I've got this last screw out, and as you can see, I have my thumb in the middle applying a little bit of pressure, and the reason I'm doing that is there is always a spring underneath. This one's stuck a little bit. Alright. There's always a spring underneath. As you can see, it's pushing the cap up. I'm not lifting the cap up. This spring I'm just going to take out, set aside. This is typical for an older diaphragm. It can still be used. It's just it has been worn a little bit. So I'm just going to take this diaphragm out. Usually the diaphragm will slide up out of its seal. Now there's a little word of caution. If you leave this apart too long, you will have trouble getting this diaphragm back in the groove. The rubber just kind of tries to shift a little bit in size or deform a little bit when it's outside of the carburetor, because it's made to be held into these grooves, and that's what helps it keep its shape. So this one is already warped a little bit. It'll still perform like it's supposed to. What you would want to look for is any cracks, any microscopic cracks. Not microscopic, you can't see microscopic cracks. You would want to look for any tiny cracks that would be in this, because those cracks do they make, like, as soon as you go to try to rev the bike, it'll just die out. The way that this works, really, to be really basic in the explanation, whenever there's engine suction going through here, which is a vacuum, the engine creates a vacuum. When that's being sucked through this venturi, it creates a suction on this side of the diaphragm, and on this side of the diaphragm, since there's a suction there, it ends up sucking the diaphragm up. As it sucks it up, it increases the airflow. This is a needle that goes through the float side. It goes through the end of the float bowl side of the carburetor, and it affects how much fuel gets sucked into the engine. So it's really basic. They're really simple. That's why I love them so much. But be very careful with these. The only cleaning you would want to do with this is you would want to go around the plastic of the diaphragm and just make sure there's no gunk, there's no buildup. I've seen these stuck before. They'll get a lot of this buildup around the slide. This is the slide, and this is a slide diaphragm. So there'll be a lot of buildup on the slide part, and then that buildup will make it harder to. It makes it harder to move, and when it gets to a certain point, it makes it impossible to move. So it would just be stuck in place. So if your motorcycle's been sitting for a really long time, before you pull it all the way off the bike, you can actually put your finger in and try to push this slide up. It should move because there's a spring on the other side. It should go all the way up, probably 3/4, 7/8 of the way, almost all the way to the top. So these springs never really need to be replaced or stretched back out. I've never seen one that needed to be stretched back out. What I've done with this is I've polished the plastic before so that this moves even better. And like I've cleaned it first. You don't want to spray carburetor cleaner directly on it. You could spray it on a rag and then go around this the slide, clean it off, clean the needle too. So you can see this is a little dirty. There's a little bit of buildup on it. Clean the needle too, and if you want, take some. There's some polishing compound or something like that, and just go around it and just clean it up really well. Make it really shiny. So you can do that if you want to. Just makes it perform better. But the diaphragm is not supposed to look like this. Usually it doesn't have these grooves in it. But this doesn't mean it's bad. This just means that it is older. So just look for cracks. That's all I really have to say about that. So for right now, I'm just gonna put this in there, just popping it up some. This way I'm not setting it down on the side. I mean, that would kind of speed along the deformation of the slide that's on the slide diaphragm. So Just going to set this aside where it's out of the way, where it's safe, where it can't get any spray or overspray on it in the carburetor cleaner. So I'm going to clean this now. I've set it down. And I have my spray can of carburetor cleaner. Sprayed some on. Now I'm just going to clean I'm just cleaning the metal. So getting that gunk off of the needle. Okay. You can see all of that came off of the needle. So it's a lot cleaner now. Anyway, now that I've cleaned that, I'm going to put that in there where it's safe, and I'm just going to pull this off to the side where I can't get any carburetor cleaner or overspray on it. That slide moved well and moved easy enough, so I didn't have to actually clean the slide where there was that buildup on it. So now that's out of the way, I don't really have to worry about this that much more. I'm going to take this float side off, so I'm tilting it up this way. Oh yes, I should say this. You want to be really careful when you're removing this. I didn't even notice that the screen was in there, but I saw this yesterday. The screen, where is that? Fuel inlet. Where's the fuel inlet? Okay, yeah. So the fuel inlet is like that. This screen sits right in there. So because as you can see, it's really easy for it to fall out. It's really easy for me to lose it. So make sure you don't lose that. It's not a big deal really. It just helps filter out some of the things. Like if your tank is starting to get a little bit of rust inside of it, then that rust would go in, and this little screen helps stop it if it makes it past the fuel filter. So this bike, when I was looking at it, the fuel filter had actually been bypassed when I took it apart. But I'm going to get that out of the way, set this over to the side. So I can start taking the float side off. Float bow's loose. It should just come off all the way, and it does. Oh, it's pretty awesome. There's a bracket right there. Good thing I had this tiny screwdriver. So there's a cotter pin. It's on this side. Throttle assembly. Okay, got that out, still intact. You can straighten it up some and slide it back in a little bit easier. But the order of this that I'm pulling off, you got the cotter pin. It's typical cotter pin assembly. Cotter pin, you have that little washer, and then this should just slide off. Now that's what was keeping me from getting the float bowl all the way off. So now that's off. I don't have to remove all this stuff. I could have removed it from that side, but then there's that spring and everything. So this is off now. I'm not touching this side, so I'm not going to take that apart. Mainly because I haven't seen. I don't even know what this is. So look, the inside of this looks pretty clean. Pretty clean. Okay. So one of the things I'm inspecting with this, and I'm going to inspect this float pin. Right. I'm going to be careful not to scratch it. Check it out. So now that this pin is out, I can remove the float all the way. And this looks pretty clean. I'm still going to clean it a little bit anyway. Spray some carburetor cleaner on a rag. I just have some regular Napa brand spray carburetor cleaner, so cleaning that. It's all nice and clean. I'm just going to stick it there just to hold it. So I'm going to put it back in whenever I pull this float out. I don't like it rolling around and getting other junk on it, because if you get little specks of dust and things like that on it, then it will keep the carburetor from, keep the float from pivoting like it's supposed to. So what we're going to look for is if this is getting into any fuel inside of it. If it is, this is supposed to float, right? I mean, you see it's hollow inside, it's not solid plastic. So it's supposed to float. If it's not floating like it's supposed to, there could be a few reasons why. One, the inside walls of, like, where this is called a float needle. So the inside walls where this float needle sit in there, they could be dirty, they could be gunked up a little bit. That's why I have these Q-tips here. I'm going to spray them with carburetor cleaner, put it in and out some, and the inside of this is really clean. I've seen them before where they just get gunked up inside because the carburetors have been sitting. It kind of looks like pudding. So just gonna take this off. I'm gonna clean the sides of this to where they're not, because you see, as you can see, in the, whenever they get that light reflection, they are a little bit dirty. So I'm gonna clean the sides of this, and I'm gonna clean the inside walls of that, and then I'm gonna take these jets out. So I'm gonna make sure this is, the inside of this is clean. It's a good idea to replace this gasket, because whenever you put it back on, there's a good chance it's gonna leak. You can play with tightening it up a little bit so that it doesn't leak. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've actually had a lot of luck with them not leaking, but if you're worried about it, but also the longer you keep it apart, the greater your chances of it leaking. Because the ones that I did have, that I took them apart and I put them back together and they leaked, was when I had that float bowl gasket. I had it off, had the float bowl separated for too long. So, and I don't want to use that flathead. Let me grab my other flathead. Right now I'm going to loosen these jets just to inspect those. Okay. I'm going to be careful with these. The head of this is brass, so the you can actually strip out the head of this. I've worked on some before where somebody didn't know what they were doing, and or maybe they just couldn't get, maybe they knew what they were doing and they just couldn't get the head of this out. But you can see this one's a pretty tight fit because it's sticking to my screwdriver. Alright, so this is what the guitar string is for. Now you can look through and you can usually see a hole straight through. Sometimes it's fully clogged and you can't see anything. This one, I can look through and I can see that there is a hole. But what I'm going to do, spray that with carburetor cleaner, get some on the inside. Also, if you have little cuts on your hands, this carburetor cleaner feels amazing. It's so soothing. No, it's not soothing at all. It stings a lot. But whatever. If you're a guy, you push through it. Rawr, rawr, and then you grunt. So, as I said, I pushed the string through once. So in theory, it should only really scratch the inside of the jet once. Pull it out. If it does scratch it again, it would only scratch it once. If you have a can of compressed air, use that. Otherwise, this is all nice and clean. You also have little orifices that are inside of this. It's a good idea to clean those, and you can see the direction that they go. This is the idle. So this is the idle jet. Sorry, I paused a little bit there. And the idle jet, you could see this little passageway in the carburetor. It goes straight to this idle air fuel mixture. Now when you adjust the idle air fuel mixture, which right now it's capped off by the EPA, this one's never been adjusted, I'm going to have to drill that out. So my drill is not up here. I do have another video that I'm going to pop up a link to, or you can check in the description if you're using a regular mobile phone. But you can take out that idle screw. Alright, now I'm not over tightening this, I'm just tightening it to where it's, where it's gonna hold. But basically what you would do is you would take your drill, I mean it's like a small drill bit, small enough to where after you drill it through you can fit a wood screw in, and the that little inclined plane that's on the side of the screw, the wedges. As you screw it in, it'll wedge itself in the hole. Then you just take some pliers and you wiggle it out. It's really not that hard. You don't want to drill too deep because you can damage the head of the screw. That's the idle air fuel screw. So, like I said, you don't want to drill too deep. Sometimes this comes out fairly easily. Right now I'm guessing that's not going to. So, and sometimes there's a little mesh screen that's on the inside of this. This is where the fuel comes into the carburetor. So, I'm just going to spray some, feels like it's about to fall over. Just going to spray some carburetor cleaner, get this float out of the way. Spray some carburetor cleaner on this, and as I said earlier, and I'm backtracking to my little earlier statement, so we're going to clean the inside walls of this just so that it's nice and smooth. It feels nice and smooth. It's not getting hung on anything. We'll see how clean it is whenever I pull this back out. Really clean. They didn't even pick up any gunk at all. So, but like I said, that's where the fuel comes in. So, the inside walls of this are clean. Where the fuel comes in, it's clean. This is really, it's overall just a clean carburetor. So this is the main jet. This is the one that the needle goes through in the bottom. So as I was saying earlier, you have that needle that sits on the back side. I'm not going to pull it out again because I have too much stuff going on here in this little mini window, right? But you have the this is the needle jet, or the main jet, and on the bottom side of this there's that needle that's on the needle that's on the slide. That needle goes straight into here. So at higher idle, so I'm trying to be careful with this. Right, that. I like using this screwdriver because it's perfect. It snugs right in. As you can see, it snugs right into that. This is just a Stanley Phillips screwdriver, basic Stanley Phillips screwdriver. So you see, if you look through this one, you get where it's wide on the bottom. So you look through this, you can see there's a hole on the inside. And I'm going to do the same thing and just clean the sidewalls of this with my guitar string. Stick the guitar string in, roll it around. Oh, I didn't put carburetor cleaner on it. Ha. This little can lost its aerosol. I think maybe it's defective can. I don't know. I thought I remembered it working, but it might have just been old enough that. But yeah, it lost its little spray. So anyway, so I just did that. Put it through, spun it around. It's good. So this is cleaner than it was. Whatever gunk was on the inside walls of this, it's gone now. And when I do that, I'm not using the point part of the guitar string to poke through whatever could be there. I'm using the side, this flat side of the string, just to go around the edge and just clean it off. So, yeah. If anything, I mean, if it is scratching the inside more than I think it's scratching the inside, it's really not a bad thing. It's just, it would be like the same thing as putting a little jet kit in, you know. You're just slightly increasing how much fuel is going to go into the engine. So just changing your air fuel ratio slightly. So just inspecting the rest of this. This comes out too. There's no real reason to pull it out. Sometimes this is called an emulsion tube. These here, sometimes they come off. On this one you can see that it doesn't come off. So right now I'm going to get my rag, and my friend was asking me to clean these, but these don't actually look like they need cleaning. So I'm going to have to tell him that his carburetors are fine. He's got another problem with his bike. So just cleaning this. And as I clean this, you can see this side is becoming a little bit more shiny. So it'll be able to Did I say slide? The side of this is becoming a little bit more shiny. So if it's shinier, it's going to be smoother. Whatever buildup was on there, not really going to matter that much because it's going to should move in and out fine. So yeah, glides in, glides out. It's all good. Considering how clean the rest of this carburetor is, yeah, there's not really a lot that I can do. I think after I'm gonna shut the camera off because I've already made a video on drilling through this, and I'm gonna have that pop up. But you drill through that, pull this out, and then you can unscrew this idle air mixture screw. Now I'm just gonna walk you through what you would have to do once you take this out. So underneath here, like I said, there's an idle air mixture screw, and it looks just like a jet from the top side. It might not have that hole in the middle, but it's just looks like a screw. So when you remove that, there's a certain number of turns that it has to be out from the bottom. There's usually a spring and a little rubber O-ring that's around it too. Some models don't have the O-ring, some do. But whenever you pull out that idle mixture screw, you would want to spin it down first and just count however many number of turns that it was set at. If you want to write it down somewhere. If you have 4 inline carburetors that are all one assembly, write down which one's which. You know, if one was 2.5 turns out, if one was 4 turns out, if one was 3 turns out. They're not supposed to be all different, they're supposed to be all the same. But some of them are all different just because, you know, the vibration and everything loosens up the number of screw turns. So look online, find the number of screw turns that you would need to have this set at. Usually it's about 2.5. So that's something that's typical. I'm not saying usual for this carburetor. Typically for the different carburetor models, you would have it about 2.5 screw turns out, 2.5 to 4. But look up online. If you have a jet kit in yours, then you're going to have a different number of idle screw turns. It's also called a pilot screw. Yeah, I'm saying a lot, aren't I? Somebody's gonna call me out on that and leave a negative comment, like that always happens. Anyway, this is the coolant passages here that I said when I was pulling the bike apart. And is that a little buildup down there, or is that cast? No, that's cast. There's just some cast pits down there. So from when it's this is cast aluminum, and then they smooth it out. It's not CNC machined. Anyway, this is all I have for this. I mean, there's really not a lot that I have to clean. Oh yeah, there is. I'm gonna clean that. So, and you thought you were done. All I'm gonna do with this is gonna spray some carburetor cleaner on a rag. Well, not spray, drip some carburetor cleaner on a rag because this can lost its aerosol. So I just have some sprayed on a rag. And I'm just going to go through it. I'm just going to wipe it out. So you can see it cleans up really easily. This is probably just oil gunk from oil getting back into the engine. So, or oil getting into the airbox and going back into the engine. Because you have your little breather hose that goes into the airbox pre-carburetor. So and also, if you want to clean the inside walls that your slides on, it's not a bad idea. These are pretty clean. I'm going to show that in a second. Show what they're supposed to look like. Alright, well, I've mostly got all that out. So if you look down on this side, you can see There's a little buildup on the diaphragm side. It's not bad. Just kind of wipe that out. And again, I did just wipe this out, and this is where the diaphragm sits, so I'm going to let this air out just for a couple minutes. This stuff evaporates pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about it that much. But that's what the inside walls are supposed to look like. I'm looking in here, I'm not looking in here. So, pretty clean. Like I said, they get gunked up. But anyway, I'm going to go through just a little time-lapse reassembly of this. It's pretty basic. This one didn't even need to be cleaned. So, everything's pretty clean. There's a little buildup on the inside of this when I open the butterfly. I'm not taking the butterfly assembly off. That's usually a little bit more complicated than we need to get, because all we're doing is cleaning the fuel delivery part of the carburetor. So that's where it gets gunked up, is where the fuel is. So we have this stupid ethanol mix fuel that separates from the gas and gunks up the carburetors. Gas would gunk up the carburetors if it sits anyway, but this stuff just, it's not fun. So anyway, so I'm going to go through a time-lapse reassembly of this. And just to recap before I do my little time-lapse montage, I could play some like 80s music where like, we're getting stuff done. No, I'm really not. So look at your float. Make sure you're not getting any fuel in. Make sure you don't have any pinholes. If you take this apart whenever it's fresh, then like you had just drained your fuel out, then your whatever fuel is in here would not have leaked out yet. But your engine will flood out, and you would get a thing known as hydrolock if your float is getting stuck, or if this is this float needle is dirty, gunked up. If the base of it, sorry, let me pull this back out again. If the base of it is, you'll see like some little white buildups, a little white chalky buildup on it. Clean that off, buy a new one. These are cheap. It's kind of weird, they sell them either singular or by the 5-pack if you go on eBay. And if you're buying parts on eBay, I would recommend buying the factory part on eBay. I gotta clean this again, it fell out. So also, I should mention what I have when I cleaned what it was. I think it was an '84 Enduro, little Yamaha dirt bike. One of the, was it that or was it Suzuki? I don't remember, but one of the older motorcycles I worked on. When I went to try to get this pin out, this pivot pin was actually stuck just because of gunk and everything on the inside of the carburetor. It was actually stuck to this post that comes up. And I could not get it out, and it was, when I got to that and I saw that, it made the carburetor actually scarier to work on. So if you see something like that, you want to be a little bit more careful. Don't what do you call it? I wouldn't continue any further. I mean, I would look into buying, if you want to find a factory, just another factory carburetor for your motorcycle that's on eBay. Buy a carburetor set or just a carburetor, and go through, like, after you order it, try to order it from a dry environment, somewhere like Arizona or something like that. Order it, open it up, clean it, refurbish it, everything. Maybe use some of your old parts if they're in a better shape than the other carburetor. But And then this float looks like it's moving like it's supposed to, not really hanging up. If you have more than one carburetor, what I like to do is I like to pick up the assembly and shift it, and then when I shift it like that, you'll actually see all the floats pivot in unison. And when they're pivoting together and they're all pivoting with the same amount of resistance, they're all pivoting together, you'll know that's a good sign. So they'll all move like chances are they're moving like they're supposed to, or they're all worn the same and they're moving like they're all worn the same. So I put the main jet back in and I put the auto jet back in. The float pin here, float needle and float, those are all back in. That's everything that I took off from this side. So this, inspect how clean it is. This one, you've got a little bit of buildup. I'm going to clean that out. Alright, this is kind of bothering me a little bit. The mating area, the mating surface on this, the mating area, where they go to mate. The surface area on this had all this junk on it, so I just kind of wiped it off the best I could on that gasket that goes around this. I'm just doing the same for this. It's because it is a lot of junk. Be careful of the float if you're doing this with the float still on. So you don't want to move it and bend it too much. So and I'm being really careful with this screwdriver. I'm not putting a lot of pressure down to try to get this gunk up. I'm just applying like a little bit of basic pressure. So it is a good idea to replace these if it does leak. So I don't have this right now. I'm risking putting it back on. I mean, it's not going to kill anything, right? It would just leak fuel, and you'll see if it's leaking fuel when you first put it back on. But this one I'm just smoothing it out so that it sits flush. That's that. And if you remember the order, it was this and then the cotter pin. Just took a little break and cleaned out that, not cleaned out, straightened up the cotter pin. Slides in smooth. Bend it around. This one's small enough, you don't have to use pliers, you can just bend it around with your hand. So I think I actually straightened it up with my hand a little bit. Anyway, so that's that. The longer screws were in the float bowl side. See here that idle mixture screw that I was telling you about, that's got that EPA cap over it. It's sitting right there on the outside of the float bowl. So you can adjust this, you can drill it out without taking out the float bowl. So these are all about the same tightness. Now, float side, not float, the slide side. I'm not cleaning this one because it's not gunked up. This is how I'm putting it back in. As you can see, I'm not holding the diaphragm, I'm just holding the inside. Guiding it in. Hopefully this all slides in the groove like it's supposed to. Sometimes they try to pop back out of the groove whenever you're putting the cover back on. This one looks like it's staying really well. So, spring in the middle. It doesn't matter the direction of the spring, the top and the bottom are the same. And this is the way you see you have this side. It covers that little and doing that. Not trying to go good. Alright. This one's tricky. Got it. Alright. That's that. Now I've got it held with my finger. As you can see, it's flush mounted against both the surface areas are flush together. What you will see is if the surface areas aren't perfectly together, then there's a good chance that diaphragm isn't seating like it's supposed to. Right, this one, that's right. See, I have this little groove, not groove, but there's this clean spot around here. It's because this little holder for that wire went there. My battery's getting dangerously low. I'm watching that and I'm trying to finish this up before it dies out on me. That's that. I folded that back around. Pumped that through. So that's back through. That's like it's supposed to be. Everything's tightened up. This does not go through there. Yep. So that's that. I've cleaned the main things. Obviously, as you can tell by watching this video, I didn't clean everything. And the reason being is I only cleaned the main things that need to be cleaned. So these carburetors were in very good shape. I didn't take this side apart. I don't know what's under there. So I'm just leaving that the way it is. Anyway, like I said, alright. You want to inspect that at the end too, just to make sure you put it back in like it's supposed to. It's working like it's supposed to. Don't forget this little screen. Put it back in here where it was. Don't drop it. You can spray it out. You can spray some carburetor cleaner on it and clean it out. Dry it out really fast just in case. You do have a little ring right there, a little rubber ring right there too. I think that's a rubber ring on this top. It might just be plastic, part of the assembly. Anyway, so that's it. This is that VT600 Honda Shadow. So Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, check out my other videos. I have the video where I show me drilling this out, putting a screw in, popping that up. Like I said, I have a little video that's going to pop up. And also, if you want to check out how to remove this from the bike, I have a video on that too, and it popped up earlier on in the video, in this video. And it's also, I'm just going to pop it up now, so it'll show up like right around here somewhere. So anyway, thanks for watching though. I really hope this was helpful and informative, and that you guys could really go through this and do it on your own. So sorry it was such a long video. I wanted to go through the whole process and just show me taking everything apart and just how simple it is really. So thanks for watching though, and God bless you guys.